On today's episode, I sit down with co-moderator candidates Chris Peters and Rebecca Luter. This is part of my series of conversations with each of the four teams standing for co-moderator of the 227th General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church, USA. Rebecca is a member of the Presbytery of Mid-South and the pastor of Farmington Presbyterian Church in Germantown, Tennessee. And Chris is a member of Homestead Presbytery and the pastor at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Lincoln, Nebraska. In each episode, we discuss the future of the church, faith leaders and direct action, Christian nationalism, ICE and immigration, Christian Zionism, artificial intelligence, the debates about marriage, and more. You will also learn about the nerdiest parts of their lives and what they are watching, reading, or listening to. And each gets a chance to ask me one big question. Thanks for spending time with the Amalgamation, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with co-moderator candidates Rebecca Luter and Chris Peters. My name is Bruce Reyes-Chow, and you found the Amalgamation Podcast. Each episode, I chat with inspiring humans, activists, artists, academics, and adventurers as we joyfully and courageously co-conspire to make the world a more loving, compassionate, and just home for everyone. Welcome to the Amalgamation. I'm really excited, you all, a little bit nerdy excited. We continue on with our co-moderator interviews, this time with Chris and Rebecca. And so I'm just going to jump in. Chris, if you would just quickly introduce yourself, tell us, or what's important to know about you now. Folks have already heard your official bio, but Chris, what should we know about you these days?
Yeah, I think what's important to know about me today is that I'm really trying to live into a sense of being myself in all that I do. And that was a commitment I made when I began the search process for the call that I'm in now, to sort of a no BS, just be you type of approach to life. And so that's not only who I'm trying to be the person that God has called me to be, and to do some work on what that looks like as a jumpy Enneagram 7, and all those good things. I have a great family, families first, and that'll be the case too in this co-moderator journey should we prevail or anything of that nature. And our toddler's hilarious. I don't know that I've met a kid that age with comedic timing, so that's a lot of fun.
Comes by it honestly, I'm sure. So disclaimer, Chris and I are friends, so just for folks out there.
I'll pretend I don't know you or something.
Yeah, exactly. And you are. Yes, so great. Thank you. And Rebecca, tell us what's important to know about you these days.
So my life and pace are changing, where Chris is in the midst of toddler life. My two are flying the nest. And so I am at a point of rediscovering who I am going to be with my time and how I balance my time in a new way. Chris mentioned his integrity as one of the things that he is really working toward, being himself in all places and at all times. And that really speaks to me because that was my star word a few years ago. And my star word this year is play. And I think that is not who I have been. And so it is who I am I'm trying to listen to what that word means in my life. Chris is a 7. I'm a 9 on the Enneagram. And so I am seeking what peace looks like in this new space. But I'm also a person who really seeks to work together with others in a way that we can together have connection and achieve peace. And so this has been sort of a fun journey for me to get to meet new people and hear about what the church and the world might be.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, I'm on that edge of parenting life as well. So we just sent off our middle kid to New York for not a job, not school. She's done with her graduate degree and just going to go do an adventure. And we're like, well, but why would you leave us? We don't really understand. Like, we're so
we're
fun.
The coolest people ever.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like we're fun. Yeah, it was very sad. Anyway, yes, right there with you. All right, so let's just jump into this. You all are standing for co-moderator of the 227th General Assembly, which is wild. And so just give me the origin story. How did you all become this co-moderator team? Tell us, what was the origin story of this team?
I got an email from an elder in my church in November that just said very cryptically, might this be a good time for you to consider leadership at the GA level? And I responded, well, perhaps. I mean, I'm open to conversation. My children are graduating, and my youngest is graduating high school this year, and I'm healthy. So I don't have a reason to say, no, I cannot possibly consider that. And within 30 minutes, I got a phone call from a person who was considering standing for co-moderator. And I was honored and humbled and talked with this person over a number of months, and we planned to stand. And then in February, this person accepted a new call and said, I am called in a different direction. Mm-hmm. And I said, great, then I'm off the hook. Right. Because this person was the person who was called to this. But I had already gotten the endorsement of my presbytery. And so my colleagues kept asking me, when are we going to see your announcement that you're standing? And I said, well, the person I was going to stand with isn't standing. And they said, that doesn't change your call. Mm-hmm. Over and over again. And so I began really more on a journey of my own sense of call to this work and what that meant in this time, what I bring in my experience and life. So then my new excuse when the Spirit would wake me up at 2 a.m. and say, what are you going to do about this journey today, was I don't have a list of the people who are commissioners. And at this point, it has to be somebody who's already a commissioner. So I'm out. I can't do anything about this. Right. And on Easter Monday, I got a phone call from a colleague, friend who is retired in ministry. And she was checking in. How was your Easter? How are you resting today? And she asked, and when are you going to announce your stand for co-moderator? And I said, well, here's the thing. I don't have a list of the people who are commissioners. And by the time we got off the phone, she had emailed me a list of the people who were commissioners. So that meant that then I had to take it seriously. And I began to share that list with trusted friends and ask people, who would you say I should ask from this list who might be called to stand with me, who would be a good partner in standing? And over again, Chris Peters' name was mentioned. And so at some point, I talked with someone who went to seminary with Chris, and they said, I'll just check and see. I do know how to contact him. I'll check and see if he's interested at all. And then he called me, and the rest, as they say, is history.
And I
was like, and then it actually had to happen.
I was sitting on my couch, and I got a text from that person, and I thought, this must be a joke. Where is this coming from? But asking if I'd be willing to talk with someone who is standing. And my approach to life and ministry is to say, yeah, if you want to talk, I'll talk with you. Let's do it.
The 7. When is the 7 going to go? I'm good. I don't. This shiny thing over here.
It's like. I don't know what the answer will be, where the discernment will lead, but I like connecting with people. Let's try this conversation. Anyway, we had a wonderful conversation, and just shortly thereafter, and have had certainly many more since, we moved on calling a presbytery meeting once I had some discernment. I talked with a number of friends and colleagues and mentors and said, this is not on my bingo card. And one of my good friends and mentors said to me, well, there's a reason that a bingo card has a free space. And maybe you should think about that. I was like, oh man, why are you saying this? So in that discernment, the one thing that kept standing out was a feeling both within me and within my spouse, that Lauren, that there was no anxiety. I mean, there's, some concern about what does this look like? What would it really mean, even just to stand, much less anything else. And so I talked with a prior co-moderator, and she was sharing the importance of the consideration of how we use that language. And it was very humbling to have that conversation. And it led me, a number of conversations and prayer and all those good things led me to say, okay, let's step into this possibility and see where God leads.
Right. I would say you're talking about the standing language.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. The standing language versus.
Yeah. For those of you that aren't involved in the Presbyterians, we don't run for this office. We stand for it. Stand for it. So to be led by God. And so I think that was part of what I valued about that. But
So that's the difference in languages,
Great.
stand versus run.
Well, I was going to say, probably as an Enneagram 9, my sense of how I follow a call is, do I have anxiety about moving forward or peace about moving forward? And this was one of those occasions when the anxiety came when I wasn't moving forward.
Good. Awesome.
And I think one of the things I'd throw in there too that I've appreciated in this that has been very affirming, that this was God, the right direction and the direction God was calling Rebecca and I into together, was the number of connection. I mean, of course, we're Presbyterians, so we're all, we know this, you know this person, this person, all that good stuff. But really connecting over not just the people within our denomination, but the passions that we have and our vision for what that role might look like.
Cool. Well, that's a great segue into the next one. I mean, so how long was it till Bruce gets the job? He was a former moderator. So I was a former moderator. Yeah. 2018, I can't remember which General Assembly it was, a million years ago. And there was that stand versus run language. And I'm one of those, I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this just to be there. Like, there's something I want to say, right? Win, lose, whatever. So why you two now? Like, what is the unique thing that you all have to say to this denomination right now? Like, what is it about the moderating skills you carry? Is it about the message you have? Like, why you all and right now?
I think it has to do with, for me, the need as we come together with a new agency, the Presbyterian Life and Witness, to understand that we are forming our norms at the top, and we are determining how we will make decisions, and the culture that we will have as a body at Presbyterian Life and Witness, and that will impact the church. And how we connect and communicate with the church is crucial in this time. And so my role, the role I see for co-moderator is, having been a congregational leader, deeply immersed in congregational ministry, both Chris and I, is to help the agencies of the Presbyterian Church hear and listen to the people in the pews and connect, communicate. Chris knows I'm always a metaphor person. I recently had tree work done on this great big tree in my front yard. And the arborist came out and looked at the tree and said, the tree is going well, even though it has lost some limbs due to storms, because the leaves at the ends of the farthest branches are not withering. And in the Presbyterian system, at the top of our denomination, we have had to do some pruning because the leaves weren't doing well. And the arborist told me the roots the tree requires that the roots go down and get 300 gallons of water a day to support the life of the tree. The concern is always the roots. And I think it's really important for us as a denomination to make sure we're nurturing the roots, the congregational life, and meeting the needs of our roots if we're going to flourish.
Good. Thanks. Chris, you want anything to add?
Yeah, I think with that sense of a calling it to kind of that ground level grassroots reality of congregational life in the Presbyterian Church, I thought just the other day about the language of accompaniment, which I know Montreat Youth Conferences used to use a lot back in the days I was kind of bopping around there. And I think that idea of meeting people where they are, connecting, that's such a huge part of that ambassador role that takes place the 2 years between the General Assemblies. And I think that then goes to inform what you do later on.
Great. This is a question that I think every moderator crew will struggle with, whether it was one or two. How do you perceive your power and influence then in the denomination? I mean, I think there's always I can answer that, but what do you think? What is your impression of what's your power, influence? You know, I think everybody wants the moderator to just declare things. Some moderators want to declare things, but that's not your role. But how do you see your power and influence in the denomination should you get elected? Yeah,
I was thinking about the concept of influence, just generally. And I think there's one way to say good influence, or kind of that John Lewis idea of make good trouble. So I think the concept of influence is being someone who leads in language, leads in direction, leads in vision, and helps us to work as best as possible, of course, with the stated clerk, with the new board that will be nominated, and to seek to work together. I think the kind of the power and influence piece is working to have a voice that brings us together as best as we can.
Great.
I think of it more as responsibility than power. It's a heavy mantle to wear, and you get the opportunity to have a light to shine in some dark places, and the power of connection to engage with people, to communicate how the Holy Spirit moved at the 227th General Assembly, and to help people unpack what has happened, where we are, and where we're going, and how we move toward wholeness, and where God is leading us as we move toward the 228th General Assembly, because we are reformed and always reforming, if you want to pick up one of those phrases. I think it's an opportunity rather than grab at power.
Yeah.
To share with people and help people along the journey and journey with people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I will say that there is a lot of power and influence in the office. I mean, I think that how
Sure.
you go about, whether you want it or not, I mean, I think that's that whole thing is what people place upon versus kind of how you might want it to be, for sure. But this is a good question, right? Because this is the first year that's shifting the elections. Right? Before, we were elected at the very beginning of the General Assembly. So that group is the one who said, we'll spend a week with you. Now this changes, right? Where the group that you will moderate is not the group that elected you. I have thoughts, but what do you think about that? Good, bad, otherwise?
I think from a prep standpoint, it's good because you can go into General Assembly with more input and preparation from all of the entities that might have guidance for you in moderating. And I think it's sort of a positive that you were part of the body that discerned where the Holy Spirit was leading during General Assembly. And then you get to interpret what happened in the midst of that space without having been the person who moderated that space. To say, this is how it was as a commissioner in that space, and this is how we heard what God was calling us to. And these were the conversations that were going on as an interpreter and an ambassador for what happened.
Yeah,
So
and
I see some positives.
I think in my imagination, it's that same thing, that investment through the committee work, the investment through serving as a commissioner to then step forward. I think the other reality is that in 2028, you would be folks that the commissioners at that GA would have journeyed alongside. Hopefully, if you've helped connect well, but hopefully you're not completely unfamiliar when you're there to moderate that next meeting, and they've journeyed with you and you've journeyed with the denomination and in that leadership position in a way that people are excited about being there with you that week versus saying, oh man, it's Chris and Rebecca.
Who are they?
Yeah.
I think the downside is the temptation to turn it into a political effort. That during General Assembly, the focus really needs to be for us on our committee work and being good commissioners, and not on running for an office.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that gets set up. Like when do you get to talk about it? And you're with hybrid services, the hybrid General Assembly, it's a little bit different. You won't be there together as long. I was just thinking as you were talking that and then you don't get blamed for what happened at your General Assembly. As you go out. I mean, the number of things I got blamed for that I'm like, I don't even remember doing that. I was just moderating. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just like, yeah, that's an interesting. All right. So let's say you get elected. This is great. You all have been walked down and all the pomp and circumstance happens. And then now your congregation, community, you are like, oh no, what has happened? How are you going to balance all this? It's just, how are you going to balance ministry, all the ministries that you're part of, whether it's congregational or others are not in congregations, or and community, whatever that means for you, and the work of holding this office? How do you anticipate kind of just holding all of that well together?
Well, I think the first thing that comes back to my mind is the initial feeling of stepping into this with a lack of a lack of great anxiety, maybe moments of anxiety for sure. But I think Rebecca and I, we've walked into it with a lot of vulnerability and transparency right from the get-go. And so I think that will allow us to help balance how we do the co-moderator piece of the roles. For me, I'm the type of person who, when I'm out and about, I obviously want to do the connecting, but I also know that I need recharge time and to block that time out, to block the spaces that I need. I'm actually working with a bit of a coach of sorts on how to do schedule blocking and thinking about what that would look like already. What might that look like with co-moderating? Again, I talked to a few folks who've been in that seat and thinking about what does it look like for family life and getting some ideas of ways that people have upheld the values of their own family, their call, all those things that we would have to balance. But exercise, therapy, all those good things continuing on.
Great. Awesome. I so much want to talk about our time at Orange Theory, Chris, but I'm not going to.
I'm still in pain.
I just remember looking over you, you're like doubled over, like that's good.
I was definitely doubled over.
What about you? How are you going to handle all the chaos of should you get elected?
I think there is a sense of balance in my life. I love to travel, so I'm excited about looking at the travel schedule and making plans to go places and meet people and see other congregations and other places where ministry is flourishing, and also hearing stories of concern and listening well and pollinating ideas, and also helping at General Assembly level connect with resources. We have so many resources that sometimes don't get shared well. And so I think that's something that excites me. I have a staffing model here that will allow our associate to take on some of the responsibilities that I currently carry, and she's excited about that. So I'm prepared to do that. She's in her retirement years, and so she is happy to step up for more than her part-time role. So that feels good for the congregation. Overall, I am not a person who can do the same thing over and over and over again. So I'm really excited about having some new things.
You are primed to be an empty nester then. Like this is like, ooh, I can travel. I know my folks are like, I remember when we were about to be, we have 3. And so they're all empty and folks are like, are you guys gonna be okay? Because we are super involved with our children's stuff. And I'm like, we're going to be fine.
Right.
Actually, we're going to be all right. And like we can go in whatever we want. Yeah.
I have had so many people say to me, what are you going to do? Both of my children are theater kids. And so we have been immersed in theater and dance and all the things. And they're like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, oh, we'll be fine.
Yeah, I know. We were soccer in theater. And so it was like, I miss it. I completely miss those things. But at the same time, I'm like, all my weekends are free. Right. What is happening? It's crazy. All right, let's jump into this next segment. So you all are going to be going around to places and folks are just going to ask you things. You have an hour town hall or you have a 20-minute Q&A where everybody wants you to solve the problems of the world in the church. And so we're going to kind of rapid question these things a little bit with you all. And then I assume that the format at General Assembly will be the same. There's going to be questions that are going to come forward from the body. So you don't always get a lot of time to prepare, though hopefully you're preparing in other ways. So let me just ask you a few questions. Who is Jesus to you? Chris, why don't you start?
Jesus to me, the idea that comes to mind initially is Luke 4. Jesus in his hometown temple rolling out the scroll and saying, I've come to bring good news to the poor and liberation for the oppressed. And I think leaning into Jesus, if we lean into that story, we can lean into Jesus saying, this is who I am in these years to come, and this reality of bringing about God's reign amongst us. And so I think for me, leaning into those concepts, and then, Jesus was someone who welcomed children, but also flipped tables, I think in the temple. And so I think balancing that scope of who Jesus is and what Jesus calls us to is who Jesus is to me.
All right, thanks.
I think I really lean into Jesus as God's love revealed, and that humanity just really could not understand that God is for us. and not against us. And so God demonstrated God's love for us in the life and teachings and death and resurrection of Jesus. And that's not just for me, but also for you and every other you that you ever meet. And that Imago Dei piece comes in there for me, but also that Jesus revealed that God loves everybody. And that informs all of how we live in the world.
Great, thanks. Whiplash, let me ask you a question about General Assembly. Though it's not. I mean, I do think that one of the dangers we have is like General Assembly is this and everybody is, but things are changing at the national body, right? I mean, things are changing. Folks are going to want, that's probably going to be one of the big things, nerdily so, that folks are going to ask you about over the next year. So what are your thoughts briefly, because I know we can go forever on this, on the consolidation of Mission Council, Office of General Assembly into Life and Witness? Rebecca, why don't you start?
All right. So change is disorienting, right? So we are in a time of great disorientation. And when we're disoriented, we know anxiety gets high and trust gets low. And so across the church and within Presbyterian Life and Witness, transparency and honesty and explanations for the whys of decisions are going to be required, even beyond what we might think we need to communicate. We are going to need to communicate to calm the anxieties and to reestablish trust and to emerge well from this unification process. If you look back over the history of Presbyterians, we have not changed this rapidly in at least my recent memory. And so we're not used to change like this.
We like change for other people, is really what it comes down to. I mean, yeah.
There you go.
Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the same things. We've talked a lot, Rebecca and I, about transparency, and that's a value that we would both hold very highly for ourselves and for walking into. She mentioned disorientation, and I think the question then is, how do you move into reorientation? To use the language that we like as Presbyterians often. I know I've seen. Yeah, I was going to say some Walter Brueggemann in there. Yeah, I've seen over the last couple of years the word fatigue pop up in articles about the state of kind of what's been going on behind the scenes, even with the unification process. And I think if you're leaning into this new season of streamlining models, streamlining the functions into one, we need to hear the stories of fatigue and hold those with respect, and also look to what's next. I think our whole language of preparing to emerge is we are emerging into this new identity with Presbyterian Life and Witness. So we seek to help lead us into what is next. And I think that is probably one of the most exciting prospects for potential co-moderators coming forward. Okay. Scary at times, but exciting too.
At 7 and a 9 involved with this process is actually not every number is fine. I just think people are going to be like, I'm a 3, so it's fine. I've not done a series on Enneagram yet on this podcast. I really probably should, but go ahead, Rebecca, you were going to add something.
I think there's a balance between looking back and looking forward at this point. We certainly have some overtures that are questioning some of the decisions that have been made, and that work will come through committee and be dealt with at General Assembly, and whoever is elected as co-moderators are going to be the ambassadors to share and work through not only where there found issues or issues that need to be reconsidered, but also how do we emerge from this space of genuine hurt in a way that allows us to rebuild our structure to be a beautiful structure that truly is nimble enough and light enough to fly. And I think that's a piece of what we are in the midst of. Is we've had some pruning, and should that pruning have been where it is, there's a lot of communication and question around. So how will we emerge well? I think there are a lot of conversations that need to happen around that.
Great. Thanks. Yeah, we could probably talk about this for a long time, more than anybody really wants us to talk about it in the world. But yes, we could. So let me just run down a bunch of other questions that you may or may not get. I mean, I did this when I was preparing. We actually did mock question things. So here's your mock question time.
All right.
So, co-moderators, where do you see the church thriving as you've been traveling? And then where do we need to step up more? I'm starting with a really easy one before we get into the tough one. So where do you see the church thriving? Where do we need to step up more?
I think we're getting involved in a lot of mission and service and justice issues that I don't know that the congregational level was involved in at the level that it is now 20 years ago. So that's exciting. I think that we need to step up more in hearing and understanding what the relational needs of 20s and 30s and 40-year-olds are. We no longer live in a society where people leave for college and then have children and come back to church. That model of evangelism no longer works. People aren't going to come because they have kids. They are going to come because they are being fed in a way that they need to be fed by a congregation. And then we also need to make sure that we have great children's ministry ready on day one that they arrive.
Yep.
To piggyback on some of the first thing that you were saying, Rebecca, I think we're thriving in our public witness. And I think that's something to be excited about and proud of as Presbyterians. My own church has a dedicated group that does the hops on Zoom for the advocacy hour discussions that are going on to the Office of Public Witness. And I think that's an exciting thing. And it's getting conversation. It's getting momentum in our own context to wrestle with important issues that we wrestle with as Presbyterians. I think we need to step up as well, thinking about the connections and the value we should have, or maybe sometimes do have, for folks who are in validated ministries or at large in their presbyteries, who are doing these ground level work, sometimes in ministries that are so different from maybe the traditional model, so to speak, and to value that and to uplift those voices as well, to really lean into sometimes the folks who unintentionally, whether it's through our systems or our polity or our pensions or whatever the case may be, get sidelined or marginalized in ways that, are sometimes unjust, frankly.
Good. Thank you. You all mentioned a little bit about public witness and kind of engage in things. So there have been a lot of religious leaders who've been engaging in a lot of direct action lately. And so what do you think is the role of the church in protest and direct action?
I mean, I do think there's, again, thinking about that concept of public witness and what are we called to stand for and who are we called to stand with is a question that we need to wrestle with as Presbyterians. And I think direct action and protest is something that's valuable and does allow us to at least seek to be seen and have a voice that's heard on concerns in our world and concerns in our communities. I mean, I've been very impressed, I guess is maybe not exactly the right word, but have been, following clergy in Minneapolis this year and seeing their direct action in response to what's going on in that community with ICE and everything else. So I think there's something to be said about that, and I think it is important to be a part of who we are.
The role of the church is to lead toward justice, and a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if a clergy person wearing a collar at a protest leads to people seeing that the protest is legitimate or has them question whether the action that they are speaking against is just or not, I support it. We have to use our influence for good.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's a lot going on in the country right now, but let me ask you a question you may or may not get. Like somebody says, I don't understand why Christian nationalism is bad. Shouldn't American Christians care about the United States? So talk a little bit about Christian nationalism. Now we'll just jump right into the easy ones.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So, of course, American Christians should care about our nation. God speaks through the prophet Jeremiah that his people are supposed to seek the good of the city where they're in exile. And so we certainly should seek the good of the place where we live. There's a difference, though, between nationalism and patriotism. Patriotism says, I love my country. Nationalism says, God loves my country more than other countries. And that's where the problem comes in with Christian nationalism.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, I think you used the language of care, and again, care is a good thing. Angry, fervent, storming the Capitol nationalism, in my opinion, at least, is not. And I value that we have this overture coming that is speaking to the challenges of Christian nationalism and the problem of it in our society, but also speaking to it with language from our faith through the scriptures and through our confessions. I think it's structured well, and I think that's one example of something that may come through. We'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Great. We could do a whole episode on Christian nationalism too.
So,
but I'm going to get caught in my own. I'm trying to speak through this. Okay, so let's say, I know ICE hasn't been perfect. Clearly, as people hear me reading these, this is not
where you normally come from.
I was having a fun time trying to write these questions. I don't do a very good job anyway. Anyway, ICE has not been perfect, but shouldn't we allow people to come to the United States to do it the right way?
I think there's a need for people to understand the current situation of what the quote unquote right way requires. And the right way is too broken. For the response to be denying people's dignity and rights is not acceptable regardless of people's status.
I think there's that idea of should we allow? You can flip that question and say, well, then should we reject? Should we reject someone seeking asylum? Should we reject someone who's a refugee? Should we reject these situations and these humans who are created in the image of God? And I think the part of the question, again, for us, it would be, well, who defines the right way and what does that entail, et cetera, and kind of go from there.
Okay, thanks.
Just the financial burden of trying to come into the country the quote unquote right way is exorbitant.
Yeah. I was going to say that like every fiber of my body wants to interact with you, but that's not what they get to do on the floor of General Assembly. They just get to answer your questions and you get to respond. All right. So our denomination has taken a stand against Christian Zionism. What's your understanding of Christian Zionism and our denomination's role in resisting it?
I think one way I understand Christian Zionism is the visualization of this a particular nation state as having divine rights or divine blessings that then can lead to justification if you go so far into that understanding of the divine right, so to speak, that can lead to justification for atrocities, for genocide. And I think Christian Zionism, it can lead to that place. And so I think that's part of my understanding of Christian Zionism in that regard. I think the denomination's role in resisting that is to, Bruce, you've done a lot of good work in helping amplify voices from Palestine. And I think that leaning into those voices and leaning into hearing the stories and to do that work as well is important, and to see what's actually happening on the ground level and to then speak justly.
Okay, thanks.
So my understanding of Christian Zionism is that, in essence, it asserts that Jesus' return requires that Jews be in power in Jerusalem. And that has led to a need for sort of a systematic unpacking of the theology of dispensationalism, understanding that embedded in that is racism and exceptionalism, and also, as Chris just said, the sort of meeting people and understanding the oppression under which they are living in Palestine. Having the opportunity to sit down and have dinner with a Christian Palestinian family in Bethlehem, you hear the stories of even the gentleman that was the father in the household that I ate with, was sharing, he's a tour guide. He can make a quarter of what an Israeli tour guide is legally allowed to make. The struggle to cross checkpoints and the time that it takes, the inability to traverse a car from Palestinian areas to Israeli areas if you're Palestinian, the differences in the license plates. It's systemic oppression. and understanding the cost, and that people who are oppressed will revolt. They will come to a place where they have to revolt. Peace will not come until people's dignity is honored.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, moderators. All right, next question. Got a few more to go here. I don't know if you've heard, but AI is a lot in the news these days. Maybe if you've heard that.
The A what?
There's so much debate about artificial intelligence. What do you think about it and using it or not using it in ministry?
So XAI is building in Memphis on the Memphis Aquifer. Ooh. And I live here. Ooh. So I have real feelings about the impact on our water supply and our environment. There are times that I have put things into AI to see if I liked what it would spit back out to me. And it's really good. I am a person of a lot of words. It's good at making bullet points for me. It's good at taking all of my narrative and boiling it down into something that is a reasonable length, but it doesn't have poetry. It loses meaning. It loses the emotional connection. And so I think that it's really important in ministry to be cautious about where it is used and when we use it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think we're facing similar questions in Lancaster County, Nebraska, as Google data centers are being brought to construction, so to speak. But again, that question of the water and energy management is a crucial question as we seek to be stewards of the good gift of creation. That's certainly a value I lean into very heavily in my own life. And Pope Leo just maybe yesterday, I don't know, at the time of our recording, released this encyclical, and I have not read it, but I think what I have seen is again, that human side, the uplift of the dignity of the worker, and how we lean into this understanding of our own creativity. I heard a pastor, this is probably 2 years ago now, say, "Oh yeah, I'm using AI to help write my sermons," and I was like, "Oh, that's not a journey or a path I plan to walk into." And I also get kind of annoyed when personally when that AI email response comes back that you're like, did you even think about my question?
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, like you're my colleague or my friend, like just put some thought into it. But I will say, the same reality though, if I popped some list into Claude to reorganize it or do something else, I think that's the hard part right now too, is that there's a level of it being ubiquitous, even in just your average search engine. I don't, it's definitely a dilemma ethically in many ways these days. So.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Well, if you can figure that one out for everybody, you'll be golden. Yeah, it'd be good. Write that book. You could probably just plug it in.
There you go.
What do you think about the ongoing? No, let's keep going. What do you think about the ongoing debates about marriage? We do have an overture about marriage coming up, but what do you think about the ongoing debates about marriage structures, what it is, all that kind of stuff? I think,
for me, in many ways, the most important thing is what is fair, non-manipulative, non-harmful within a loving human relationship. And so that's kind of a question within what is it. Maybe not marriage specifically, but how do we break that down? But how do we break down the reality of human relationships and how we value one another within them? So I think maybe the debate should be more along the lines of what do we say about the family with the narcissistic, controlling person versus saying you can't get married based off of who you love or whatever the case may be.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah, similarly, I tend to tell people when they ask me where I stand on issues of who should or should not be in covenant relationship with another person, let's figure out all the places in the world where we have hate and animosity, and then we can try to argue about who should love each other. So I come to that, but I also think that there is a deep need for us to understand the value of relationships. And if we want to have some sort of statement about how clergy should live their lives in relationship, I'm good with that. That we should be people of honesty and equitable power and respect and avoid abuse or coercion and be loving. That is a statement that I can get behind.
Great. Awesome. Thank you all. Okay. So any issue, question that maybe you think might get asked of you that I have not asked yet?
I think you have certainly touched on many good ones. The AI question does touch on questions of environmental justice, and I think that would be one that would be likely to come up, knowing, again, questions of divestment from fossil fuels coming up again, and how do we navigate all of that with MRTIs, and what does that look like for us? Where do we land at the end of the day? And so I think that would be an area that would probably get asked. And I think for me, again, leaning on the question of what does it mean to be good stewards of this gift of creation that we are able to enjoy as human creatures? And I think that's kind of the bottom line basis that I come back to when it comes to environmental issues.
Great. Thank you. Rebecca, any other issues you want to make sure you lift up?
I don't think so.
No?
I'm good.
People will love that.
Let me throw another one out
there. And I'll bat off of it. I'm not thinking of one.
No,
What's your list?
No, I don't have a list.
All right. So this is a good question. Is I think one of the tenderest parts about being moderator is when you disagree with your denomination. Now, when I was moderator ordination was very different. Everything was different, right? And it varied depending on what country you're in. So how are you going to both articulate and live out those places where you disagree with who we are as a denomination and maybe your personal, your theological space around that? But how are you going to articulate that to people, and how are you going to manage that or navigate it?
I think it's our role to tell the story and to point out the ways that the Spirit is moving in the midst of the story. Certainly, it's never a finished story. And so when people are upset about a decision, that's not the final decision, and helping people see that that was the decision of a body, that this was the way God was leading us at that time. I don't have to agree with everything that comes out of General Assembly. Very rarely do. I don't know anybody who does.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I think it does come down to that question of interpretation ultimately, and you can interpret things you don't agree with, if that makes sense. And so I think we would be interpreting as we go for partly for local congregations and councils, local folks on that grassroots level of our denomination, and interpreting what has come through and what does it mean. That's the real question. I don't always agree with every word of Scripture, but I still Whoops! I just disqualified it. Sorry. Well, I mean, I won't try to parse that out too much, but you know what I mean. But I still am interpreting the Bible, even if, say, in places Scripture speaks against itself. I can still interpret that to the best of my ability. I think that's what we're called to do with what happens at GA or comes out of GA.
My guess is you've already lost the literalist vote, so I'm just going to just put that out there for you.
Well,
all right. So let's jump into the last segment. We're using our time up here. So you get to ask one question of me. So if anything popped up, you have any question that you might have of me. Because podcast, I'd like to talk about me too, so go for it.
You seem to do it all. So what strategies have you found helpful to manage the chaos and still take care of yourself?
That's a good question. So I will say that the privilege is my wife has my health care. I mean, I would not be able to do as much as I do if my spouse did not cover my health care. I would be much more obligated to have a job with healthcare and stay on a call that had healthcare. The other thing is that in the Bay Area, we are fortunate that we bought a house 30 years ago. And so we have this wealth that people don't have. And so I have this. So those two things allow me not to have anxiety about survival. I mean, I think so that I'll just start there. But then I'm really good about my boundaries and my time and my. You may have gotten automatic message back. I have like 5 different things going on right now.
Right. That's what I'm asking.
So, yeah. And so I'm just like, I'm very clear about when I'm addressing these things. I'm about to start a new church, part-time transition. I'm with them Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. If somebody dies, goes to the hospital, obviously. But other than that, you don't get me Monday, Friday, Saturday. And so, because I'm working on these things. I'm very clear up front, that kind of stuff. So, and then I make sure that I play and I exercise. And I stay fit just to outlive my enemies. That's really kind of how I think about it. But I love the idea of staying healthy and fit because I've had some health stuff in the past. So that's mine. Mm-hmm. Chris, anything gone for me?
Yeah, I think what's one word of advice you would want to give to the next co-moderators?
There's going to be the cheesy one that everybody, former moderators, love to tell people. It's like, never pass up the chance to go to the bathroom, which is true. I would say it has changed. The office has changed since I had it. It's much less. I kind of think our denomination is in a place that we don't know what to do unless we're fighting, and we still don't know what to do that. Our presbyteries, all of that. And I think the moderator role is to really to remove the adversarial relationship between General Assembly and congregations and to help the back and forth in a way that's helpful for everyone, because I think it's really easy to the identified patient as this group or it's this group. And what does it mean for us to hold that? Really, I think that's the power of the office, is that space where you get access to a lot of rooms. And so the way you bring kind of what's the tone you want to have in those, I think is a really important thing to do. And I think right now we really need to have folks that are understanding the pain and also trying to interpret why and then help bring that back and all that kind of stuff. Kind of what you talked about. Thank you. All right. So let's, I got 3 questions for you as we end up, just to get to know you a little bit more as human beings. Not that before you weren't not human beings. But what's something about you? This is the Nerdy in the Niche portion of the podcast. What is something about you that is super nerdy or folks would never guess? Rebecca, you get to go first.
So at our house, we have 2 scratch-off posters. One was a gift from my husband to me of national parks, and the other was a gift from me to my husband of Major League Baseball parks. And we both love the outdoors and hiking and going to national parks. We both love Major League Baseball. And we both know that neither of us can exist with a list that we're not working on and getting done. And that having the scratch off visual, I mean, they're in their sleeves in the closet. We don't keep them out anywhere.
Sure you don't.
But they motivate us and they push us beyond like, well, should we do that or should we do this? Or
there's a scratch
every
off.
trip we make, there's a check off to be done. And so we've been moving on getting to all the national parks and all of the Major League Baseball parks.
That is awesome. I do remember when this is the only time I get to talk about being a moderator with anybody. So when I was moderator, I would tell folks that there would skew a little bit if there was baseball involved, minor league, whatever. And so I'd be like, sure, I'll go there because the whatever's there.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes,
Before
that's awesome.
we had kids, we had season tickets to minor league baseball and hit at least 72 games a year.
That's awesome. I'm a angry, bitter Oakland A's fan, but we'll just stop there. Chris, nerdy and niche for you.
Bruce is going to turn it into a baseball podcast.
Exactly.
Not because of what you were saying, but because I know you're a viewer
baseball,
for
baseball. Enneagram.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think the thing that I think of is probably, hesitant to always say this, my Dave Matthews Band fandom, which is fairly well known.
It is well known, but not everybody.
But amongst, it's on my bio on the church website. But it's to the extent there. Last night I was watching the Knicks Cavs game, and but I had my phone up to the Dave Matthews Band set list at the Wharf Amphitheater in Orange Beach, Alabama, to see what was being played because they don't play the same set list. So that is like that extent of it. I have not seen them in 5 years, and the cool thing I'm excited for, speaking of scratch off, is I'm going to mark off a bucket list item, and we'll see them at the Gorge Amphitheater over Labor Day weekend with some college buddies. So that I'm very excited about. And I know
awesome.
At least half of the podcast audience is going, oh, I'm a hater, and then the other half is going,
good.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
I'm guessing that you are the only person in the world with those two things going on side by side, the basketball game and the set list. I'm almost.
It might be true. I love the NBA.
I might put money on that.
But
all right. You should watch this clip on Saturday Night Live that's been going around about Weezer and Weezer fans.
Weezer's great, man.
You would love this clip then. It's Matt Damon, the Weezer Saturday Night Live one. You should watch it. It's hysterical. Anyway, all right, sights and sounds. What are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you watching? Rebecca, you're going first.
Okay, so listening to, I love to log into my daughter's Spotify and listen to her playlists. She's 18.
Yep, we do the same thing.
It's great. She introduces me to all kinds of music that I otherwise might not trip into. So Gracie Adams and Noah Kahan are some of my new favorites. And it's fun to see how she mixes in the Fleetwood Mac and Tears for Fears and Cranberries and all the rest of my favorites. So I enjoy listening to her playlists. We're currently, the way we watch television at my house, because I insisted when we moved into our house that the only television in the house would be in the playroom. My husband arm wrestled with me and we have a cabinet in our room that has a television in it. But I wanted us to have to go upstairs and be aware that we were leaving the rest of the family if we were watching television without everybody watching television. So we choose television to watch together. So the most recent series that we finished was The Pit, because I was pre-med. And so like even as a child, the only night I was allowed to stay up late was to watch St. Elsewhere. I've always loved medical shows. So The Pit was my most recent watch.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Have you the drama about The Pit and ER stuff?
Oh, yeah. I've watched it all.
Man, it's wild.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
yes.
It's wild. Anyway, folks, look that up on your own. Use Google.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, what are you listening? What are you reading to? What are you watching?
Listening to is usually whatever earworm my toddler wants to hear in the car. The cool thing is that sometimes it's Spidey and Friends, but he also really likes Bad Bunny, so that's been a good one.
There you go.
I like Bad Bunny.
So
train him early. Train him early, Chris.
So exactly. I've been in the last week. I've been on an early 2000s Jay-Z kick. So Blueprint Volume 1, Black Album. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I don't go into that story as much. But anyway, it's just kind of popped back up. So I'm a music guy. I run the gamut. So that's just kind of what's happening right now. Let's see. Reading or watching. We regularly watch Taskmaster. It's a British show that involves comedians doing tasks. That are either mind-numbing for them, but hilarious for the audience, or just generally frustrating. And so anyway, it's a hilarious show, but it's a nice one where you can just take a chunk. You don't have to watch the whole thing. It's like, okay, we're going to watch it. You want to watch a task? Okay, let's watch a task. So we watch for a little bit and do that. The other one that we've loved that we just finished was Company Retreat. By Jury Duty. Oh,
so funny.
It's so funny. And Anthony Norman, what like the most genuine human being. I just loved it. So we watched that, and then we watched the version where they're narrating over top of the exact same episode. So if you haven't watched that one, you get the behind the scenes. That's out now. So go check that out if you're a fan, Bruce.
Yeah, if you haven't watched Company Retreat or The Jury, you are missing out on
they're so
hours
great.
of hysterics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Cool.
Good stuff.
All right, last question for you all before we get on out of here. Comfort, encouragement, or rant? You got to get the last word here, and we decided, Chris, you're going to go first.
I will go with what I would consider maybe a word of encouragement / comfort, and that would be the language that I lean into heavily as a pastor and particularly Presbyterian is that concept of grace and gratitude. A lot of times we want to say, oh, Presbyterian, let's talk about the polity, let's talk about the structures, which are important, don't get me wrong. But I think leaning into the concept of gratitude as a response to this gift of goodness of God's grace in our lives. And that doesn't mean toxic positivity. I think gratitude can be lived out in public witness or in protest. I mean, that's a way that we say, this is the God that we love. This is the God that created us and created you, and we're called to love God and neighbor. And so I think for me, gratitude is a really important concept. When we, in my congregation, came back to worship in person kind of following the height of the pandemic, so to speak, we put in a moment of gratitude in our worship service. And we've brought it back recently, too, to identify something in the life of the church for which we are grateful as a community or a person or effort that's going on. And just to keep that sense of hope and gratitude in the forefront of who we are. And that's something that I would lean into in the role of co-moderator, and we'll lean into as we stand.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca.
Similarly, I would say notice something beautiful. Practice noticing something beautiful every day. And then throughout the day when you're struggling, let it become a habit that in the midst of all of the negative and ugly and pain of our world, we need to pause and notice something beautiful and practice that. The first time might take some time, but as you practice it, it becomes easier and easier, and that becomes a balm.
Great. Thank you. All right, you all. It has been great. Folks may want to get in touch with you all. What's the best way for them to find out more about you?
Well, we have a website, preparetoemerge.org,
Okay.
and we have social media going,
Great.
Facebook group, all that sort of stuff.
Great.
So there's a couple places to connect.
We'll put the links in the show notes, as they say.
There you go.
Great. All right. Thank you much for joining. We have been talking with Chris Peters and Rebecca Luter, who are standing for co-moderators of the 227th General Assembly. Make sure you listen to the other 3 interviews. They should all be launched now. And if you have time, go ahead and hit that 5-star and tell your friends. I mean, it's really just going to be your Presbyterian friends, but tell your friends to come over and listen to this. Again, thank you all for joining, and blessings on this exciting journey.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. Appreciate the time.
All right, take care. This podcast was hosted by Bruce Reyes-Chow, produced by Emmy Hicks, edited by Desiree McFarland, with music by Marissa Magdal-Laron, and inspired by ancestors past and generations to come. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe to the Amalgamation newsletter at Reyes-Chow.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.